Sox in the basement.
I'm the Sox nerd with my weekly Sox Stumper. Who is the only Sox player to start at the same position in the perfect games of Mark Burley and Philip Umber? I'll have the answer at the end of my spiel later in the podcast.
Have you noticed my attire? If you're watching the YouTube feed, you can see it. Have you noticed my attire today, Ed? I'm in a flowery, almost Hawaiian, very ready for summer mood today.
Yeah, you are. You're very tropical.
Yeah, that's exactly what I am today. I'm tropical today. And that's because we're at Memorial Day weekend. And what have I said each and every year over the 8 years that I have done Sox in the Basement, the majority of them with you as my co-host? Memorial Day weekend is when you look at the standings, when you look at a team, and when you say, this is what they are. All the stuff leading up to Memorial Day weekend is just the beginning of a season. You get pitchers that got started late in spring training, and they have a couple bad games out of the gate. They've got it figured out normally, if they're going to figure it out, by Memorial Day weekend. You get a guy who's a rookie, who hasn't played in the majors, or is off to a slow start. Any player's off to a slow start. When we get to Memorial Day weekend, you kind of get a better idea of who they are. Heck, Frank Thomas is a first ballot Hall of Famer. But you sometimes had to wait till he got to Memorial Day weekend before he was really the big hurt. And what I love is that I'm at Memorial Day weekend over 500 as we enter it. Playing a team that we really should take 2 out of 3 from on the road, and I hope they do. I don't know how it's going to go. But I've got a team that does a lot of things right. They're aggressive on the base paths. There's timely hitting. They refuse to go down in games. They're winning more one-run games than they are losing. They are frustrating opponents. I saw Seattle get frustrated at times with the White Sox. I saw the Cubs definitely get frustrated at times with the White Sox. This team has a personality, has a drive, has a winning record, and unbelievably, they have it when we made it to Memorial Day weekend, my friend.
Yeah, this team's identity is coming into focus, as we're sitting here at Memorial Day, and they're going to be a bunch of pests. They're going to be real pesky for everybody that they face, and they're going to be a problem for everybody that they face. They're going to frustrate. They're going to give people fits. And, for them to continue their winning ways, there's going to be a lot of things that have to shape up here, because there's some things that are going on with the team in the bullpen. There's some roster decisions that have to come up because they've got everybody contributing pretty much except for a couple of guys. And it's one of those things where you love to be in this position as a fan, to have the team that is fun and up and coming, and, kind of the sky's the limit, because we don't really know what the limitations are on everybody yet. I mean, when you look at, say, the Mariners, they know a lot about their team. The Cubs, they know a lot about their team, just to look at the last 2 series that the Sox had. With the White Sox, we don't know where this team lands. We don't know what the ceiling is for any of these guys. We're just starting to establish they've got a really, really good floor.
Yeah, they have a solid floor. I don't think that this is the kind of team that's just going to fall off a cliff. They are going to have a rough time in the month of June. We may get into that. We're definitely getting into some of the other things that you brought up today, including roster decisions and some things that may need to be changed. And when will they make those changes? This episode of Sox in the Basement, and every episode brought to you by Hyatt Home Medical Equipment. You spend your days caring for everyone else, but not your own health. That can't wait. It is Women's Health Month, and Hyatt says it's time to take the proactive steps necessary to protect your long-term independence and quality of life. At Hyatt, they empower you to stay active, safe, and confident, protecting your mobility, reclaiming your energy, and simplifying your care. Hyatt Home Medical Equipment has the latest and greatest in CPAP technology. They help you switch to a new age of life with 0% financing. In many instances, they work with your insurance, and they've got everything from stair lifts to lift bars. They can do bathroom remodeling. You've heard me talk about them so much before. Check out Hyatt Home Medical Equipment and everything they can do for you at hhme.com. Let's talk about some of the things that I've felt, and I think a lot of other White Sox fans have felt over the last week or so. because now you can realistically feel like it's a team that every day has the ability to go out and win the ball game that they're in. They may get a little bit of a shaky pitching start, let's say from Eric Fetty, but then all of a sudden Anthony Kay will settle down after like a bad inning, right? They've got a Davis Martin who's a legit ace, at least at this point, and I think that's going to continue all year long. They're in every ball game. And I think one of the scariest things, and something we'd be talking about a lot more if they weren't, if they didn't have a legit winning record in one-run ball games. I think it's 10-5 right now. It might be 10-6 after the last game. I'd have to look that up, but I know it's somewhere in that range. The bullpen. Right now, Will Venable is managing to win baseball games, but Will Venable is not the general manager, and Will Venable is not the owner. With all this love around the team, and I do really feel like there is an incredible vibe around this team. If there's any conflict, if there's any, this may turn into something, if there's anything to really watch behind the scenes, it has to be the fact that you have a manager who is out there every day trying to win a game, but he has arms in his bullpen that shouldn't be there. He doesn't have enough good, reliable arms that he can trust, whether it be a sixth inning arm, a long relief arm, a closing arm. He doesn't have enough of them. And he has to make decisions in games sometimes to bring in guys that I think Will Venable knows not good. And case in point, Jordan Hicks. And he isn't the only one. But I'm going to focus on him because he's making $17 million between this year and next year. He was a salary dump from the Boston Red Sox. You acquired him and took on more salary just to get David Sandlin, a pitcher who I'd like to see up here sooner rather than later. And that was the reason you took on the money. But he is also making very close over the next 2 years to your closer, and I'll put that in parentheses, your closer, Sir Anthony Dominguez, who's getting $20 million over the next 2 years. And we can, just with the eye test, we can be like, well, Hicks is still far worse than Sir Anthony. Sir Anthony may be losing his closing job, but Hicks is far worse than Sir Anthony Dominguez. The problem, though, is that you have an owner who does not like paying people to sit at home. We have seen him eat a contract for a year, but for 2 years, that would be a big sell. And so you don't know where it's coming from. If it's a fear that ownership is going to be angry that you're basically going to pay the next $15 million of Jordan Hicks's contract for him to not be on the team, or if it's the general manager saying, look, we think we could fix this guy and he's one of your guys and he's staying, because I don't think that the coaching staff is like, oh man, can't wait to get Hicks in there in a big moment. There was a point in time where I think he had like 9 scoreless innings over 9 appearances, but his whip was around 2. It was spread out over well over 30 days, showing they were barely using him. A lot of times it's in mop up, a lot of times when like it's not an intense moment of the game, and he was just kind of lucky. And now his last couple of appearances, you're seeing exactly what he is, but they're forced to use him because they don't have enough options out there. You can't send the same 3 guys out every single day. And when they're in competitive series, Will Venable almost has to make a decision of, I want to win this game because tomorrow I'm probably going to have to use Jordan Hicks or one of the other guys. I mean, there's a couple other out there I'm not too sure about. He's only got a few reliable relief pitchers, and I think that is a problem right there. And I think that's also why in the one-run game, in the close game, in the comeback that happens in the middle of that Mariners series, where they're down the whole game, and he goes, I want to win this now. We're going in the bottom of the 9th. Who am I going to? Is it Sir Anthony? Nope. It's Grant Taylor, because I actually want to win this game. And that's who I feel more confident in. I think we're going to start seeing the manager have to make those tough decisions, and we're going to have to wait on the front office to back him up a little bit more.
Well, and that's twice in the last 2 series because Brian Hudson got a closing opportunity as well.
Yeah. When he wants to win a game, when he's like, I'm not letting this one slip away, he is not going to Dominguez.
No, and you know, you look at Jordan Hicks's numbers, and if you focus on the ERA, the 3.68 ERA, you look at everybody else's numbers, and you're like, well, he's not too bad because you've got Tyler Davis sporting a 5.68, for example. But I trust Tyler Davis a heck of a lot more, and the reason is because of your favorite stat,
the whip.
The whip.
The whip.
Because Tyler Davis's whip is .789.
That means he sometimes doesn't put any runner on base, and sometimes he puts on one. And when you're a relief pitcher and your job is either get out of a jam or just have a clean inning, that's a whip. And that's what I feel more confident in. I think we're going to start seeing the manager have to make those tough decisions, and we're going to have to wait on the front office to back him up a little bit more. Well, and that's twice in the last 2 series because Brian Hudson got a closing opportunity as well. Yeah. When he wants to win a game, when he's like, I'm not letting this one slip away, he is not going to Dominguez.
No, and you look at Jordan Hicks's numbers, and if you focus on the ERA, the 3.68 ERA, you look at everybody else's numbers, and you're like, well, he's not too bad because you've got Tyler Davis sporting a 5.68. But
That's what I want. I don't want a guy who's guaranteed to put on at least 2 guys and may put on more and has a tendency to give up home runs.
Right. So Tyler Davis basically in 6 games has had a bad outing, and that's why his numbers look skewed. But in 16 games, Jordan Hicks putting on 2 guys an inning, and you just sort of knew when he comes in against the Mariners, you just sort of knew that something bad could happen. You just sort of had that feeling of like, God, Jordan Hicks is in a big situation here. This is a game that they could win.
He's going up against Randy Arozarena. He's not a professional hitter. I mean, he was
no, in no way, shape, or form.
Like you're just kind of like, I know what's going to happen here. It's like that moment in the horror movie where she decides to go down into the deep dark basement, and you know she's going to die. Like,
yeah.
Like something bad is going to happen here. That's what it's like when Jordan Hicks takes the mound.
He is the cute popular couple that decide in the middle of all the slashing murders that they can get it on.
Right, exactly. Like from an old 70s or 80s horror film, right?
Exactly.
They got their one moment of romance and then Freddy Krueger eats them. Or like Jason comes out and hits them with a hatchet. Like it's coming. You know it's coming. That's what happens when Jordan Hicks goes out onto the mound. And to be honest with you, I think that's something that's happening with Sir Anthony Dominguez a little bit. I mean, he's a shaky closer. I love the fact that he went with Grant Taylor. I do. And the thing is, before you go, he doesn't necessarily need to be the closer, Chris. He should just be the guy who goes up against like the best matchup. I agree. The role of closer does not need to be a closer with a capital C. The role of closer can be if the 8th inning is the heart of their order and it's the moment that you need him, Grant Taylor can go there and Sir Anthony can come in later on. But I think that a guy who can stand on the mound, throw straight filth, and strike out the side over a guy who feels shaky every time he's out there, and I don't think is a dominant, come in and shove it down your throat type pitcher like Taylor, and I think that's why over Dominguez, you've got a manager who was like in that moment, I'm going with Taylor. And I think you're going to see that an awful lot this year. For exterior windows, doors, patio doors, and storm doors, look no further than Window and Door Superstore of Oak Forest. No high pressure sales. Not in your kitchen, not in your living room, not hanging out using your bathroom. Ew. Instead, you're at their place, checking out everything in full living color. All the glass etchings you can think of, all the doorknobs, all the little window latchings, and there's an owner there, and there's also an owner during install, so you're always able to get your questions answered and make sure that it's done right. They use all of their own installers and don't farm out the work. They've been doing it that way in Oak Forest since 1985. All major brands custom made, no stock items for a perfect fit. Window and Door Superstore of Oak Forest is a half block east of 159th and Ridgeland at 6280 159th Street. See more at windowdooroakforest.com. They've got to provide him with more in the bullpen. Is there anybody down there in the minors right now that we could say, money be damned, it's time to replace Hicks with this guy, or it's time to make a move? I mean, there is plenty of shaky in that bullpen. Do we have anything? It's easy for me to say, give him more. They're not going to go out there, though, and spend money. Not now, and probably not make any kind of move for their bullpen until somebody goes, yeah, we're really going to the playoffs. We got to find somebody before the deadline. So what can they do now, Ed?
Well, there's a couple things. One is if they feel like Jordan Leisure fixed whatever was causing him to give up so many bombs, he could always come back.
Is he figuring it out?
Down in Charlotte, 4 games, 4 1/3 innings pitched. He's given up 2 hits, 5 strikeouts, only 1 walk. He's got a whip of a .692, 2.08 ERA. So he's given up 1 run basically in those 4 innings. So I don't know. I don't know if he's figured it out or not.
I mean, he did buy Mike Vassell the wand. He has to make a return at some point.
Yeah, and I think he's probably a candidate. The top reliever that they have after 17 games is a guy named Ben Peoples, who's been essentially the closer down there. He's finished 4 games. Zach Franklin's been more of the closer, but a whip of 1.103, 30 strikeouts over 11 walks. He's pitching very well. I don't know much about Ben Peoples.
I mean, if he's being used in big moments down there, he can pitch the 6th or 7th inning for me here.
Yeah, you got to figure that's what he's building up for, right? You know, and so those are the 2 at AAA, and then down at AA if you wanted to dip into Birmingham,
which I'm not sure I want to do. That's like taking a Rule 5 guy and throwing him out there in the bullpen, and we've seen that doesn't work very often.
Maybe your best bet is Jackson Kelly, who's pitching very, very well. But I think it's Leisure or Peoples.
How is David Sandlin doing down there in AAA? I mean, because that's a guy maybe they just only want to use him as a starter, but then if you do that, you're moving somebody into your bullpen. Could they theoretically say, hey, we're going to give Sandlin a chance. He's the reason we're spending all this money. And maybe this justifies moving on from Hicks because we're really giving the $17 million over the next 2 years to David Sandlin. So that we got him by paying Hicks that money and taking on that contract. So he comes up, you insert him into the rotation, or you start him off of the bullpen. There's nothing that says you can't have a guy just be an arm for you if you need to, but you could start him off in the rotation and move a Fetty into the bullpen. I'm pretty sure Eric Fetty can probably do okay in an inning and probably give you one or two whenever you need it every once in a while out there and be competitive, much more competitive than what I'm getting from Hicks.
Yeah, or Anthony Kay could move to the bullpen.
Right, he could do it. Although, man, he has been pretty good the last couple games.
He's been a lot better. He's been a lot better as starting.
Did you notice what he did in that game against Seattle? He talked about it afterwards. Remember, he goes overseas to work out stuff, and he becomes a pretty good pitcher. And I think he added the sweeper when he was there. So that's a pitch that he became convinced. And well, that's what made me good. So I might as well do that here. After the first inning, he admits that they took that completely out of his repertoire for the rest of that game. And then he was just effective. He's just throwing strikes and depending on his defense. I mean, he may be figuring something out right now. I don't know if I'm ready to give up on him. And trust me, you've heard it. I was ready to give up on him a couple weeks ago.
Right, but of the rotation pieces, Fetty and Kay are the two that are going to be replaced for Sandlin if he comes up, and Fetty, it might be something where if he can't go long distances, if he's going to have blister problems, whatever it is, maybe it is something where he moves to the pen. I don't know if they'd want to do that or if they'd want to use Sandlin in a multi-inning role, and give him kind of regular rest and things like that. The same could be said, in theory about Hagen Smith, because they're using him as a starter. You could bring him up and work him in the same way. And also Jonathan Cannon, if, and his numbers aren't overly impressive down there, but if they feel like Cannon gives them a better shot for one inning out of the bullpen and they can sit there and say, you've got a really good arm, forget trying to throw all the moving stuff and the junk and trying to trick guys, just go out there and throw strikes with whatever you've got because we know your stuff plays really well. Maybe Cannon becomes a guy that is way more effective out of the pen than he ever was as a starter.
Well, that would be an interesting thing to do with him because let's be honest, when you look at the big picture for White Sox pitching long term and the ceilings of the guys that are also still in the minors that will be getting up here at some point, and then what Cannon's ceiling is and what scouting reports have said, I don't see a spot for him ever. Like you've got to have a lot of guys need arm work or you get some surgeries in there and somebody just doesn't pan out who looks like they're on a better trajectory than him. Like a lot of things have to go wrong for Jonathan Cannon to end up in your rotation at some point. So maybe he should be working out as a relief pitcher. That's an interesting thing. I mean, if he's got talent, get an inning or two out of him every once in a while in big situations. A lot of really good relief pitchers are starters that are converted eventually to becoming relief pitchers. Okay, I mean, Liam Hendricks was a starter, and he was terrible at it. He became a relief pitcher, and then he was a god for a while, right?
Dennis Eckersley is one of the greatest closers in history.
Thank you.
Started as a starter,
and he was a starter. So I mean, there's no shame in that whatsoever. I know I was even clamoring for the idea of Grant Taylor should eventually be a starter. I don't know. Looks like a just incredible closer to me.
Right?
Looks like the guy. I mean. I was laying on my couch watching that game. That was a late game. That game ends at 11:30 at night, right? I'm laying on the couch half asleep. I actually am in and out of dozing because that game, there's not a lot going on in it. He came out of the mound and my kids were laughing. I went from being dad who was laying on a pillow on the couch, stretched out watching the game, to dad who's screaming expletives and pumping his fist, popping off the couch as he's throwing them by guys. That guy's electric. More of that in late innings. More of that closing games.
Yeah, well, and the key is between Taylor and Dominguez, just watching them, what Grant Taylor has worked on improving from last year when they were putting him in those high leverage situations is Grant Taylor is no longer having the control issues he was having, where he was super wild. He'd get too amped up. Now he's a lot more comfortable looking, a lot more confident. So when you see him blowing high fastballs by guys, that's an intentional pitch. That is a pitch that he is throwing because they are scared of his curveball, because they know that they can't, they can't handle the difference between his curve and his fastball. They can't pick him up.
And the mix was so good.
And the mix was really, really good. Yeah. and the difference is that Dominguez, when you watch him, the stuff moves around. So he'll throw something that tails back over the plate, and when that gets crushed, or he throws a splitter. I mean, when he's been really good, you've seen him throw splitters for strikes. When he's not going really good, those splitters are flying way out of his hand and going into the opposing batter's box against a lefty, or, he's grounding pitches and giving Romo and Caro fits back behind the plate. So, the effectively wild stuff doesn't really work. And we've seen that. I mean, going back to Jordan Hicks, that's Jordan Hicks. The guy cannot throw quality strikes to save his life.
And that's what kills him. That's what kills him. That's what kills him. And you're never going to fix that. You're never going to fix that. You can't
Nobody's
teach
been able
him.
to.
You can't teach him after all these years to fix that. He's potential that was never completely realized, because that's what he does. And that's why Boston is still paying a big chunk of his contract to get him off their team. That's the reality of it. And until the White Sox,
they took him from the Giants, who took him from the Cardinals, who took him.
everybody who's had him understands what he is, Ed. And
all these fan bases are nodding along with us if they're listening.
Listen, Moose Vinyl is an application for record collectors to manage their record collections, buy and sell them. It's available on your iPhone, coming to Android soon. And it's also a newer Streamline app designed for collectors that allows for importing CSV files and other platforms from other platforms you may be using to manage collections. Already being praised for having the best user interface around for record collectors. And now they have a brick and mortar record store for you to experience. Visit B-Sides by Moose Vinyl in Lemont downtown at 306 Canal Street, where they're selling turntables and vintage audio equipment at a discount through July. And get the Moose Vinyl app. It is going to change your record collecting world. Another world that I want to change is the world of Luis Angel Acuna, because that world belongs in AAA. And it belongs DFA'd, and trust me, if they DFA him, nobody's claiming him. He's going right through. Okay? And if somebody claims him, who cares? You traded away $20 million. This is all about putting things in perspective, right? You have to put the Jordan Hicks money in perspective. You paid it to get David Sandlin because you thought it was worth spending that money and bringing in a crappy relief pitcher to get that prospect, right? So know what it is and stop hamstringing your manager by leaving him on your roster. And it's the same thing with Acuna. You got rid of $20 million because your cheap owner doesn't let you field a full team. So you needed to get rid of that $20 million so you could use it on other things. I mean, you kind of wasted it on Sir Anthony Dominguez, I think, but you did that for a reason, right? Luis Robert Jr. is once again hitting poorly and injured.
He's got a season OPS of 656. Right. He is being outplayed in every way, shape, and form by Tristan Peters.
He's got a bad back now. And anybody that remembers what happened to Joe Creedy when he started having back issues knows exactly what he is for the rest of his career. Looks really good with his shirt off. That's about it. Okay? Ball player, not so much. So you didn't give up that much. So you can move on from Acuna. And I see everybody kind of clamoring for Jacob Gonzalez. And then I see the argument of, well, he's not very fast. So you're giving up that speed to go get Gonzalez and bring him up here from AAA. I think what they're really doing is they're just waiting for Pereira and or Hayes to get here. And they're going to have to get rid of someone. And that's when he gets DFA'd. He's not being used very often. He is just an automatic out when he's in the lineup. And that's a person that they need to move on from. And then I think what happens is you're adding another outfielder in and moving on from him. Sam Antonacci is still your leadoff, or depending on if it's righty or lefty, he's batting, what would they normally put him at then? Fifth? Okay, and they move Mydroth up to leadoff. That seems to be like the pattern. But he still hits in the same spot. And he may start in left field every day too. But midway through the game, he may be moving into the infield if they need an infield replacement. Or when somebody's off and needs a day off, like Vargas needs a day off or Montgomery needs a day off and they need another infielder, Antonacci comes into the infield. He'll still play every day, but I think he's infield, outfield after the move is done. And I think they're just waiting because they have a few guys that are already taking swings in Hayes and Pereira, and the move is coming. That's what I hope that's the case, Ed.
Well, and who else goes? That's the question. When Pereira comes back and Hayes comes back, I mean, you can sit there and make the case that Hayes comes back, Randall Grichuk loses his job, although I
don't want to lose him.
He's been super useful, and I don't think
him. Can we keep him? I'd move on from Kelenic before I moved on from Grichuk, even though I'm sure there's plenty of people who think that's a terrible idea, right? Like Kelenic is younger, he has more potential, but I mean, Grichuk's a gamer, and he's a professional hitter. You can bring him cold off the bench in the 9th inning, down by 2, and on the first swing, he hits a ball that's out of the strike zone by a foot, out to opposite field.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to DFA that? I don't think I want to DFA that.
No, and I think he's really content at this point in his career to be that guy. And Will Venable can use him as that guy to come in and, play the bullpen matchup game in late innings. And frankly, he's been so effective at it that he becomes a threat to the other manager who has to sit there and think really long and hard. All right, if I bring in this lefty to face Jared Kelenic, am I really facing Randall Grichuk? And the answer is yes, you are.
Yes, you are. He's coming. He's showing up. Yeah. And he's dangerous. There's a reason the Yankees, I mean, Aaron Boone was like, we really hated the fact that we weren't able to get him to the minors. Like they hated letting go of him. The Yankees were vocal after he was gone and the White Sox snatched him up that they hated it, that they had lost him.
So I don't think he goes. I think what happens is Pereira comes back, Hayes comes back. I think Kelenic, who had a moment where he was hitting well and has cooled way off and is showing himself to be exactly what everybody thought he was.
He is what he is. I think he gets DFA'd, and I also think that the same thing happens with Acuna. I think that's the logical thing.
Because Derek Hill is too valuable.
Derek Hill's your speedster off the bench then at that point because you moved on from Acuna. So you still have to have all the tools that the manager needs to use, and he's doing a really good job with the tools that are given. So, I mean, he may have a preference in here. And so, like that may make a difference. But I think you have to still give him the guy who can run, and you still have to give him the defensive replacements, and he really likes righty-lefty matchups. So you have to give him the ability that when they bring in a guy who pitches with the other arm, that he can suddenly bring in 3 pinch hitters in late innings, because that's what he loves to do.
And it's worked, I
know.
So yeah, I do think that's going to be the reason why Jacob Gonzalez isn't coming up. Frankly, I think Jacob Gonzalez, if you look at his track record and you look at how hot he is right now, I think he becomes the candidate when people are asking Chris Getz, are you going to add to this team? I think Gonzalez being the odd man out in the infield, if you think about the future of, say, Rock Chalowski, okay, and what you already have up here and the success that Mydroth and Montgomery are having, I think what you look at with Jacob Gonzalez is that's the big carrot that's going to be dangled at the deadline if you want to get something really good back in return, if you think you need something really good back in return, because he is playing above the level that anybody expected from him. He is super hot, and it makes it look like, okay, maybe this guy has turned the corner, and maybe this is the reason why we can give up, not just the player that they need now, but maybe it is something where you can tag team it and say, okay, we're going to get bullpen help for right now, for example, off of this, maybe a closer, if they don't want to use Grant Taylor in that role. And, here comes another David Sandlin to go along with it, since the White Sox are going to take this on and give us this prospect. It's probably a bit of a pipe dream there, but that I think is where Jacob Gonzalez fits in much more than coming up here and sitting on the bench, because what good does he do you in Luis Angel Acuna's role if you're not going to use him every day? And why would you bring up Jacob Gonzalez and tell Chase Mydroth, who's been playing well, that I'm going to sit you? Why would you bring him up here and sit Sam Antonacci, who's who's got the highest average on the team and is your best leadoff option? Why are you going to sit him for Jacob Gonzalez? You don't.
That music means the Sox nerd Dave Marin is on the line with his trivia nuggets and tidbits and the answer to his question at the beginning of the show. And he's brought to you by the Village of Lemont. Want to experience a downtown with real history, great eats and drinks, and green spaces filled with adventure? Visit the Village of Lemont. Shop, dine, drink, explore, and see everything they have going on this weekend. There's a big barbecue fest going on at the Forge. If you're looking for something to do on this Memorial Day weekend, see it all at LemontDowntown.com. Nerd, what do you got for me?
Chris, the Buffalo Sabres season recently came to an end with a heartbreaking Game 7 overtime loss to the Montreal Canadiens. This was the Sabres' first trip to the postseason in 14 seasons, and in the process, they won a playoff series for the first time in 20 years. Why do I bring this up? Well, thanks to a good friend of mine who hails from Western New York, I became a Sabres fan about 6 years ago when I fell out of favor with the Blackhawks. This is when the Sabres were the laughingstock of the National Hockey League, losing and losing and losing and finding new and creative ways to lose. My friend, easily the most knowledgeable hockey fan I know, assured me the Sabres had a bevy of young talent developing on the roster and on the way. Patience was the key. Sound familiar? It took a while. At one point, after a particularly bumbling Sabre setback, my wife said to me, "You sure can pick 'em." But next year is finally here for the Skaters of Buffalo. The team delivered the fan base a season they deserved, and the hockey world took notice. I hope there is some wayward baseball fan out there who latched onto the flailing White Sox a few years ago the way I latched onto the Sabres and got to know our history, our fan base, our culture, the way I became familiar with the Saberhood. It appears, like the Sabres, after the suffering of the worst kind, good times are here and good times are ahead for our Sox. Speaking of good times, how about Len Kasper's call of Edgar Carroll's walk-off homer against the Cubs? If you haven't heard it, where have you been? I have it on my X timeline. It's definitely worth a listen. I'd put Len's call in the pantheon of great broadcast calls in White Sox history for sure. I have John Rooney's description of the final out of the 2005 World Series at the top of my list. And while there are so many Hawk calls and non-calls that could rate near the top, I'd rank his call of Joe Creedy's walk-off homer against Cleveland on September 20th, 2005, and the final out of Burley's perfecto as his best. Harry Carey really didn't have a signature call in his time with the Sox, but no one, and I mean no one, celebrated a Sox win with more enthusiasm and gusto than Harry. I have posted Harry's call of the Sox win of August 9th, 1974 on my social media timelines as a prime example of prime Harry. You will notice he sounds totally different from Cubs Harry. Some nuggets? That Tuesday win in Seattle where the Sox scored 2 in the 9th and finished the game with 1 hit was a wild one. That was the 84th one-hitter in Sox history, but just the 21st in which they allowed a run and the 14th time they allowed an earned run. Prior to Tuesday, the last time the Sox had a one-hitter in which they gave up a run was in a 4-1 win at Detroit on July 13th, 2021, behind Rodon, Marshall, and Hendricks. There were only 5 hits total in that Tuesday game, but that's not even close to the American League record for fewest hits in a game. On June 21st, 1956, the Sox and Orioles combined for 2 hits in a 1-0 Sox win at Comiskey Park. The Sox lone hit was a double by Nellie Fox, the Sox second batter of the game, which scored Jungle Jim Rivera, who walked to start the first. Some nuggets? That Tuesday win in Seattle where the Sox scored 2 in the 9th and held the Mariners to 1 hit was a wild one. When Seattle's Luis Castillo entered in the 7th on Tuesday, Darren Jackson said Castillo, a struggling starter, was seeking a long save. That set me on a quest to find the Sox longest save. In the save era, that's 1969 on, it's 4 innings, done 45 times, with the latest by Matt Ginter on May 7th, 2002. And one more, Grant Taylor has not allowed a home run in 62 innings, which is the 3rd longest streak in Sox history, behind Grover Loudermilk's 102 in 1919 and 1920, and Bill Lathrop's 64 2/3 innings in 1913 and 1914. Before I get to my stumper answer and zinger, I remind you gems like these and more can be found on my WordPress blog, which you can access at soxinthebasement.com. I am also on X, Threads, Facebook, and Instagram. My stumper answer. I asked who is the only player to start at the same position in the perfectos of Burley and Umber, and it was shortstop Alexei Ramirez. Yes. My zinger, Randall Grichuk and Derek Hill Both have 2 pinch hit home runs already this season. They are halfway to the club record, which was set by Daniel Palka in the height of Palkamania in 2018. That's it, Chris. Probably more than you wanted to know about the Saberhood, broadcast calls, and low-hit games.
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on soxinthebasement.com.